So we're going to look at applications of word problems. And before, we had equations in the form y equals mx plus b, which was the slope-intercept form of a line, where m was the rate of change or the slope, and b was the starting value or the y-intercept. Basically, when x was 0, what do we have for the b, the starting value? So number 1, the total amount a student can expect to spend on room and board at a college is A equals 5,400x, where x is the number of semesters. Find the total spent on room and board for 4 semesters. Well, if x is the number of semesters, and we have 4 semesters, we can take our equation and put 4 in place of x. So A, the amount spent, would be 5,400 times 4. And when you do that calculation, you end up with $21,600. Part B, what is the value of the slope? Explain its meaning in the context of the question. So here, the value of the slope. Well, if we recognize A equals 5,400x, we can kind of think about that as y equals mx plus b form. Instead of y, we have A, the total amount spent. We have x for the number of semesters, but now we have 5,400 in place of the m. And then there's nothing that we're adding on at the end of the equation, so b would be 0. So the value of the slope, the coefficient of x, is 5,400. Well, now we need to understand what does that 5,400 mean in the context of the question. So they tell you the total amount spent on room and board is given by this equation. So we need to think about what is that 5,400 telling us? Well, when x is, say, 0, after 0 semesters, you would pay $0. If x is 1, that would be 5,400. So if I look at a little table of this, when x is 1, A is 5,400. If you spent 2 semesters, you would take 5,400 twice, which would be 10,800. And you could do 3 semesters, add on another 5,400 to take you to 16,200. But the basic idea there is, notice that every time the semester goes up by 1. So every semester is going to cost you an extra $5,400 in room and board. So in the context of the question, the total room and board increases by $5,400 per semester. So that's how you want to interpret the slope in the context of the question. So total room and board increases by $5,400 per semester. Number 2, Jill's hiring a caterer for a graduation party. The dollar amount they charged for n attendees is modeled by C equals 400 plus 14n. So if n people attend, they're going to charge you 400 plus 14n. So the number of attendees, if the cost is 1,800. So 1,800 total cost, we need to think about, is that a C or an N? Well, $1,800 is a cost, not number of attendees. It didn't say 1,800 people attend. That'd be a fun party, but it's giving you the total cost. So 1,800 equals 400 plus 14n. So then you go through and solve it, subtract 400, and I'm just going to do that step quickly in my head, equals 14n, and then divide by the 14, and you get n equals 100. So that means 100 people would attend if the total cost was $1,800. In part B, find the total cost of 135 attendees. Well, now they're telling us that N, the number of attendees, is 135. So that's just C equals 400 plus 14 times 135. So when you calculate that, you end up with $2,290 total. So 135 attendees would cost a total of $2,290. And then part C, explain the meaning of the numbers in the equation. So 414. What do they mean in the equation? Well, if we look at C equals 400 plus 14N, they're telling you the total cost starts at 400 and then adds $14 for every N. So if N was 0, basically meaning nobody showed up, it'd be pretty sad. But if nobody showed up, if N is 0, you'd have C equals 400 plus 0, so the cost will be 400. So the 400, that is just your starting value, which is the cost of nobody attending. Now, I already have this written down for the sake of time. I'm just going to put that up there so I don't waste time writing it. Okay, so 400 is the cost of nobody attending, or the starting cost is $400. The 14, if you think about that, is once you pay that initial starting cost of 400, if one person shows up, you're going to add $14 once to that 400. So if one person shows up, so if you're the only one there, it's going to cost you $414. If 2 people show up, so it's going to be 400 plus 14 twice. If 10 people show up, it'll be 400 plus 14 10 times. So what that 14 is telling you, it's the slope or the rate of change, but more specifically in the context of the question, each person that shows up is going to cost $14. Okay, so the total cost increases by $14 per person. So that's how you would explain the 14. Okay, moving on. Town council projects the population of their town to be, hope that should say B there. P equals 2,700 minus 15T, where T is the number of years since 2015. So T is the number of years since 2015. What is the slope or the rate of change? Well, again, if we look at this as we have a starting value minus 15 times T, the rate of change or the slope is the number in front of the input variable T. So that minus 15, that's telling us the population is starting at 27,000 and losing or decreasing by 15 for every T, every year. So for example, if T is 0, that would mean 0 years since 2015, you would have 2,700 people, technically minus 0. So 2,700 people. In 2016, so after 1 year, what's happened is we started at 2,700, but then we subtracted 15 people once. So now you're down to 2,685. The year after that, in 2017, now T is 2, so we're 2 years past 2015. You would take away 15 twice from that 2,700 starting value. So that slope, that minus 15, tells you the population decreases by 15 people per year. And then in part B, the vertical intercept or the y-intercept or the starting value of the equation, that is your 2,700. So 0, 2,700, tells you the 2015 population was 2,700 people. And then going on to the last page here, number 4. the percentage of adults who believe Congress is doing a satisfactory job is modeled by the linear equation, P equals 52 minus 3.5t, where t is the number of years since 2015. So in 2020, 2020 is 5 years since 2015, so you're going to put 5 in place of t. So when you do that, you end up with 34.5, which translates to 34.5%. One thing I do want to mention here is that it tells you the percentage of adults is given by this equation. So that equation is already in terms of percent. You don't go moving the decimal at all. A lot of times if you see like 3.5, you want to think about that as 0.035 because you want to move the decimal. But it's already given as a percentage. So the way you interpret this equation is the percentage is 52, meaning 52%, minus 3.5% times the number of years. So explain the meaning of the values. So the values meaning the 52 and the negative 3.5. The starting percentage was 52%. So in 2015, the percentage was 52%. And then if you want to take a minute and look at the negative 3.5 and interpret that, but I'm going to show you the answer for the sake of time. The negative 3.5 tells you that the percentage decreased by 3.5% every year. Now you could say by 3.5% every year since 2015, because technically that's when we started. So that's how you look at applications of slope and of vertical intercept given these word problems.